Have you ever wished you could go back in time? Back to the carefree days of childhood, where your biggest worry was what game to play next. A time when the world felt safe, warm, and full of wonder. But not every child gets to experience that kind of childhood. Some children never get the chance to run free, to laugh without fear, or to celebrate even the smallest joys of life. Some are born into a world that was supposed to protect them, but instead, it fails them in the worst ways imaginable. This is the heartbreaking story of Megan Khung, a little girl whose tragic fate left an entire nation speechless. On July 20th, 2020, a woman walked into a police station in Singapore, her voice shaking as she reported her granddaughter Megan Khung missing. It had been months since she last saw Megan, and no matter how many times she tried to contact Megan's mother, Chloe Fu, she got no response. Something wasn't right. Earlier that year, between June 29th and July 3rd, the grandmother had received a letter stating that Megan had been hospitalized due to an illness. But what kind of illness? How serious was it? No one could tell her. Every attempt to reach Chloe was met with silence. And then there were the dreams, ominous dreams. Night after night, Megan's grandmother saw her granddaughter in distress. A sinking feeling settled in her chest. Something terrible had happened. She wasn't the only one worried. Megan's biological father, Kung Wei Nan, also felt something was off. Despite his troubled past, he still cared about his daughter and wanted to know she was safe. And so he too filed a police report. What the police discovered would send shockwaves through Singapore. When authorities tracked down Chloe Fu and her new boyfriend, they seized their phones, hoping to find clues about Megan's whereabouts. What they found instead were videos dating back to 2019. Horrific, graphic videos of Megan suffering at the hands of those who were supposed to care for her. Evidence of relentless abuse, pain, terror, and a little girl who had no one to protect her. Born on October 4th, 2015 in Singapore, Megan Khung Wai was the only child of Simon Khung, a local influencer known as Simon Boy and Chloe Fu. At first glance, they seemed like a typical young couple, but behind the scenes, their relationship was already falling apart. Court records show Simon and Chloe married on May 12th, 2015, just months before Megan was born. Within a year, their marriage began to crumble. By 2017, they had separated, and Chloe moved in with her mother, taking Megan with her. Meanwhile, Simon spiraled into drug addiction, getting arrested 3 times between 2015 and 2019. Whatever kind of father he hoped to be, his choices pushed him further away from Megan. In 2018, the year after her divorce, Chloe met Wong Shixiang, a freelance car mechanic. Their relationship moved fast, and by January 2019, Chloe left her mother's home to start a new life with Wong in a rented condo at Suites at Guillemard in Paya Lebar. But there was a problem. Chloe wanted Megan to live with her in Wong, but Megan's maternal grandmother refused. She had raised Megan with love, formed a deep bond with her, and didn't trust Wong. She also disapproved of Chloe's relationship, sensing trouble ahead, but Chloe didn't care. She cut ties with her family and ex-husband, leaving Megan with her grandmother while she went on to build a new life with Wong. And for a short while, Megan was safe, but that safety wouldn't last. As Chloe settled into her new life, a third person entered the picture, Nouvelle Chua, a close friend of Wong's. She started staying over at their condo on weekends, and eventually, Megan began visiting too. At first, it was just weekend stays, but by September 2019, Megan was permanently moved into the apartment. And that's when her nightmare truly began. It started small. Between late February and early March 2019, Wong and Chloe began caning Megan whenever she wet the bed or dirtied the furniture. At just 4 years old, Megan was being harshly punished for accidents that any child might have. Then, outsiders started noticing. On March 19, 2019, a preschool staff member noticed bruises on Megan's face, arms, and feet. When asked, Chloe lied. She fell off her bicycle, she claimed. But when more bruises appeared, she brushed it off. That's just how I discipline her. The staff was horrified. They warned Chloe that this was excessive and not acceptable for a child Megan's age. Chloe pretended to listen, replying, "Yes, I won't do it again." But 3 days later, another teacher saw even more bruises. This time, the school issued a final warning. If Megan showed any more signs of abuse, they would report Chloe to the Ministry of Social and Family Development. And Chloe panicked. To avoid getting caught, she withdrew Megan from preschool on September 17, 2019. Her excuse was the school wasn't teaching Megan Chinese. From that moment on, Megan was homeschooled, but in reality, it was just a cover-up for the escalating abuse. Her suffering grew unbearable. From September 2019 onward, Wong regularly whipped Megan with a cane, slapped her, and even punched her for dirtying the apartment. Instead of protecting her child, Chloe joined in. Once, Wong even used a water hose to beat her. But his cruelty didn't stop at physical pain. He wanted to ensure Megan couldn't escape. He taught Chloe a punishment technique, one that wouldn't leave visible bruises but would cause excruciating pain. "Press your thumb hard into her ribs," he instructed, and Chloe obeyed. Over and over again, she dug her thumb into Megan's fragile ribs, making her wince in agony whenever she was upset. Chua, the so-called family friend, knew everything, but she didn't stop the abuse. She did something far worse. She filmed it all. She recorded every slap, every cane stroke, every moment of suffering. Not to help Megan, but to remind her of the consequences of misbehaving. Later, when these videos were played in court, even hardened professionals were shaken. Some cried. Others ran out of the courtroom to throw up. The horror they witnessed was beyond imagination. On November 9th, 2019, Chua recorded one of the most disturbing moments. Megan had failed to tell her mother that her diaper was full, a simple mistake for any child. But to Chloe, it was unforgivable. She snapped. Chloe ripped the soiled diaper from Megan and forced it over her head, covering her face as the little girl sobbed uncontrollably. When Megan tried to resist, Chloe yanked her by the hair and slapped her, shoving the urine-soaked diaper back over her eyes and nose. And the humiliation didn't stop there. One day, Megan played with Chloe's makeup, an innocent act of curiosity. Wong's punishment was cruel mockery. He drew red lines all over Megan's face with a marker, then paraded her outside the condo, forcing her to wave at strangers. Chua filmed every second of it. On another occasion, Wong made Megan eat from the trash bin, watching as she dug through garbage for food. Then, as if robbing her of every last shred of dignity, Wong shaved her head, just to break her spirit. Megan had nowhere to run, no one to save her. By January 2020, her life was a cycle of starvation, beatings, and torture. And one night, on January 5th, she cried, overwhelmed, exhausted, hungry. In the middle of her sobs, mucus dripped onto Wong and Chloe, and that was all it took. Chloe slapped her across the face, then blew her own nose and wiped her mucus all over Megan's face, a final humiliation for a helpless child. Between January and February, the violence escalated. The couple upgraded their weapons. They now beat Megan with batons. They starved her completely, claiming that if she didn't eat, she wouldn't soil herself. She was also forbidden from wearing clothes, because her cane wounds leaked blood and pus, staining her shirts. She was no longer treated like a child. She was an object of torment. Megan wasn't even allowed to sleep indoors. Instead, Wong and Chloe forced her to sleep in a 3x1 meter planter box outside the condo. No blanket, no pillow, no protection from the elements. She endured blistering heat, torrential rain, and chilling winds, completely exposed. Once, Megan suffered heat stroke so severe that her body jerked uncontrollably. She needed a hospital. Instead, Wong placed an ice on her head, as if that could fix the damage her tiny body had suffered. Another time, Wong hit her so hard that he dislocated her jaw. Again, no hospital. Instead, Chloe Googled how to fix a dislocated jaw, then instructed Wong on how to snap it back in place, as Megan screamed in agony. On February 3rd, 2020, Chua recorded another video. Megan stood naked, her hair cruelly cut short, her tiny body covered in scabs and bruises. Through sobs, she begged for mercy. She pleaded for just assurance, anything to cover herself. And Chloe's response was, "Huh?" she said over and over, mocking her daughter's suffering. The next day, Megan was starving. She watched as Chloe ate a cup of noodles in front of her. When Megan begged for a bite, Chloe simply said, "It's all gone. There's nothing left for you." And Megan burst into tears. Instead of comforting her, Chloe laughed. In Mandarin, she accused Megan of bullying her, saying she was faking her cries for sympathy, even swearing at her. This was no longer just neglect. This was pure, calculated cruelty. By February 21st, 2020, Megan had not eaten all day. That night, Wong finally brought food home. For a moment, Megan thought she was finally going to eat. Instead, she was dragged into the bedroom for her final beating. Wong was furious over something as trivial as where Megan relieved herself. By now, she was too weak to stand properly, too malnourished to keep eye contact. That infuriated Wong even more. He slapped her, punched her, hit her over and over again. Then, he delivered the final fatal blow. Wong punched Megan in the stomach with full force, slamming her tiny body into the wall. The thud echoed through the room, and she collapsed. She couldn't move. Something inside her had broken, and for the first time, Chloe panicked. She turned to Wong. "She's not gonna make it. We're going to get in trouble." Just after midnight, the couple called Chua. When she arrived, Megan lay curled on the floor, barely whispering, "I'm in pain." Even Chua, who had stood by and watched so many times before, knew something was seriously wrong. "Take her to the hospital," she insisted. But Wong and Chloe refused. "She's just faking it to get us in trouble," they scoffed. Instead of helping Megan, they ignored her. They sat in the living room and got high on drugs. Meanwhile, in the bedroom, Megan was dying, alone. Several hours passed, then silence. Chua glanced at Megan's motionless body. Something was wrong. Chloe rushed over. Clear vomit with black specks lay beside Megan's mouth. In panic, they tried to revive her. They pressed on her chest, blew air into her mouth, even shoved a 30-centimeter tube down her throat, anything to force oxygen back into her tiny body. But Megan was gone. She never responded. The trio panicked. They searched for a defibrillator in the building, but they didn't take it, afraid the alarm would alert authorities. Chloe finally accepted the truth. She typed a message into their group chat. "Megan is gone." But Wong refused to give up. He improvised a twisted, makeshift defibrillator, taping metal chopsticks to electrical wires, plugging them into a power source, and pressing them against Megan's tiny chest. Nothing. Still, Wong wouldn't stop. In desperation, he ordered Chloe to smoke meth, then told her to blow the smoke into Megan's mouth, as if it could bring her back to life. Nothing. She was gone. Later, forensic experts would confirm the cause of death, a fatal blood infection caused by ruptured organs and untreated internal injuries. But Wong and Chloe were in mourning. They had only one thing on their minds. How do we get rid of the body? For 2 days, Megan's body lay abandoned in the apartment while Wong, Chloe, and Chua vanished, checking into hotels and avoiding their rented condo as if they could escape reality. But fear crept in. Someone would eventually discover Megan's body. Wong returned to the apartment where the stench of death had thickened. To slow decomposition, he wrapped Megan in a blanket, sealed her in cling wrap and tape, placed her inside a plastic storage box, and encased it in cement, reducing her to nothing more than discarded waste. To hide the smell, he kept the air conditioning running and boiled vinegar, a futile attempt to mask the horror. But even with the body hidden, one question remained. How do we make sure no one ever finds her? Wong suggested incineration using a smokeless burn barrel, a fire so hot it would leave nothing behind. Chloe researched methods online while the couple experimented with makeshift burners, testing if they could fully reduce a body to ash. Confident in their plan, Wong commissioned a custom-built container, claiming it was for incense burning, but in reality, it was designed to fit Megan's body perfectly. On May 8, 2020, nearly 3 months after Megan's death, the trio executed their final plan. They retrieved the barrel, bought charcoal, and collected Megan's cement-sealed remains. Wong transported the box alone to Paya Ubi Industrial Park, a workshop owned by his godfather, where no one would question his actions. At 6:10 a.m., he set up the middle barrel, connected the leaf blower, and lit the fire. Hours passed as the flames consumed every last trace of Megan. By 10:40 a.m., Chua left, her part in the crime complete. Wong and Chloe stayed behind, watching as their final act of cruelty turned to ash. When the fire died, Wong swept up the ashes, stuffed them into a trash bag, and drove to East Coast Park. Alone, he stood at the shoreline. The ocean stretched endlessly before him. And without hesitation, he scattered Megan's ashes into the sea. No burial, no goodbye. Just a final act of erasure, as if she had never existed. Later, Wong and Chloe cleaned every trace of their crime, then disposed of the barrel in Tampini's Lake, believing their secret was buried forever. For months, no one noticed Megan was gone. No one even asked. They had gotten away with murder. Or so they thought. By July 2020, Megan's grandmother couldn't shake the feeling something was terribly wrong. For months, Chloe ignored her calls, and the nightmares only grew stronger. It felt as if Megan was calling out to her, a desperate plea for help, long after it was too late. On July 20th, 2020, she filed a missing persons report. At the same time, Megan's father, Megan Khung, feared the worst. He had always suspected Chloe of abuse, but now Megan was gone without a trace. He went to the police and reported Chloe for child abuse. And that was the moment everything unraveled. Within 3 days, police tracked down Wong, Chloe, and Chua, bringing them in for questioning. By the 4th day, investigators came to a chilling realization. Megan had been dead for months. On July 24th, 2020, Wong and Chloe were arrested for murder. Chua, the so-called friend who had filmed Megan's suffering instead of stopping it, was also charged for helping dispose of the body. But the horror didn't stop there. Inside the apartment, investigators found drugs, a packet of crystal meth, and test results confirming Wong had meth in his system. This was more than just a murder case. It was a den of depravity. On July 25th, 2020, the 3 suspects appeared in court. Wong Shixiang, 33, and Chloe Fu, 24, were formally charged with murder, a crime that carried the mandatory death penalty under Singapore's penal code. Novelle Chua, 30, faced a lesser charge, assisting in the disposal of Megan's body, which carried a maximum sentence of 7 years. As prosecutors dug deeper, Wong's violent past came to light. Alongside murder, he faced 7 additional charges, including drug consumption, drug possession, meth trafficking, illegal possession of samurai swords, and a violent assault in 2018. On July 30th, 2020, the court ordered all 3 to remain in custody for further investigation. Prosecutors needed time to build an ironclad case and conduct psychiatric evaluations to determine their fitness for trial. By August 3rd, their remand was extended another week, but Chua's lawyer objected. He argued that Chua wasn't facing the death penalty and should be tried separately in the state courts rather than alongside Wong and Chloe in the high court. The judge dismissed the objection. The prosecution needed more time to assess Chua's full involvement. Had she merely helped dispose of Megan's body, or had she willingly participated in the months of torture leading up to the little girl's death? But in the end, despite her role in Megan's suffering, Novelle Chua was granted bail. On August 13, 2020, she walked free after posting 50,000 Singapore dollars under strict conditions, curfew, electronic tagging, and close monitoring. Meanwhile, Wong and Chloe remained behind bars, still facing murder charges. By September 2020, their psychiatric assessments were completed, but the investigation dragged on. For months, Megan's family and the public demanded justice. Then, in February 2025, everything changed. On February 28, 2025, both Wong and Chloe pleaded guilty to lesser charges, avoiding the death penalty. Wong admitted to culpable homicide, disposing of a corpse, drug trafficking, and drug consumption. Chloe pleaded guilty to allowing the death of a child, child abuse, and obstructing justice. The prosecution pushed for the harshest possible sentences. For Wong, they sought 28 to 30 years in prison and 15 to 17 strokes of the cane, calling his actions heinous and beyond redemption. For Chloe, they requested 15 to 20 years, citing her ultimate betrayal as a mother, not just failing to protect Megan, but participating in her torture. Chua's trial was still ongoing, with a pending sentence for her role in covering up the crime. The sentencing for Wong and Chloe was set for April 3, 2025. But for many, no punishment could ever be enough. When the case became public, Singapore was horrified. People wept for Megan, a child who had never been given a chance. Outrage flooded social media with calls for tougher penalties on child abusers. No one was more devastated than Megan's grandmother. At 63, she struggled to work as a cleaner while caring for her 82-year-old mother. Megan's death shattered her, but she also feared losing Chloe, her only child. She hoped Chloe would take responsibility, even if it meant spending decades behind bars. Megan's paternal family, however, was furious. Her uncle vowed never to forgive Chloe or Wong, calling his niece a sweet, innocent girl whose life was stolen too soon. He blamed Chloe directly, saying that if she had just admitted she couldn't care for Megan, their family could have stepped in. Both families wanted to hold a funeral. But there was nothing left to bury. Megan had been burned to ash, scattered into the sea, forever lost. For Simon Khung, Megan's death was a turning point. A drug addict since 16, he had spent years in and out of trouble. But learning of his daughter's fate crushed him. He blamed himself for not being there. But this time, he refused to let regret consume him. He quit drugs for good, found stable work, and rebuilt his life. Wanting to prevent others from following his path, he partnered with former addicts to educate young people about the dangers of drugs. By June 2024, he was named the first ambassador of the Singapore Anti-Narcotics Association, using his story to warn others. Even now, he mourns Megan, honoring her in every way he can, ensuring her suffering was not in vain. Simon also spoke out in support of Singapore's strict drug laws, including the death penalty for traffickers. He believed that without it, more lives would be ruined, just as his had been. To him, Megan's fate was proof of what happens when drugs destroy families. He had seen how young people spiral into addiction, how drugs turn them into monsters. He had once been one of them, but now he was fighting to stop it. And more than anything, he hoped that no other child would ever suffer the way Megan did, that there would be never another Megan. This case shook Singapore to its core. It was a story of unimaginable cruelty, betrayal, and failure by those who were supposed to love and protect an innocent child. But it was also a story of regret, redemption, and the pursuit of justice. Now it's your turn to speak. What do you think about this case? Do you believe the sentences are enough? Should there be harsher punishments for child abusers? Let me know in the comments. And that is all for today. Thanks for watching.